panic selling season has begun, and it would be rude not to share with you guys how to take advantage. For example, the 2023 driver I have in my hands here is almost 50% of its original value, even though it came out this year. So why do some brands get more affected in this season, and is it solely down to performance, or are there bigger parts at play? Putting performance to one side, which we will definitely cover towards the end of this video, there are two big factors that cause drivers to crash in value, and if timed right, a lot of you guys will be able to get a brand new shiny toy in the next month or so that will lose hardly any value over the next 2 years. So let's get into the first big factor, and this is the panic selling from a lot of retailers. And you won't see this online, as a lot of brands will have in contracts that a lot of retailers online can't cut their prices until a certain point. Normally when a new driver is about to be released. Otherwise it would create this massive crash online, as it did used to happen 8 to 10 years ago. But it's not to say it still doesn't happen now, and you can basically call this clockwork, especially with a lot of the bigger name brands. Thank you to the boys at Replay Golf for letting me in and obviously borrowing some equipment for today's video. And we only have to look on the shelf to find out what I'm about to say has some kind of merit. Now, there are two brands that have a 2-year driver cycle. Ping being one of them with the G430 that got released this year, and Titleist that came out with their TSR towards the end of last year. And if we look on the shelf with Replay, you can see there's not much stock of the Ping whatsoever. One disgruntled Ping fan obviously selling in his driver as it didn't do what he thought it was going to do, and I'll cover why that was towards the end of this video as well. But in the most part, there won't be a lot of brick and mortar or local pro shops up and down the country looking to get rid of their Ping G430s, looking to get rid of their Titleist TSRs, as to be honest, they'll be able to sell those for full retail for at least another 18 months. However, we compare it to the two other big brands, TaylorMade, Callaway, 1-year cycle. Last year was a Rogue ST, this year the Paradigm for Callaway, last year the Stealth, now the Stealth 2 for TaylorMade, and come November and December we'll see some leaks, some adverts, some promo for the new TaylorMade and Callaway drivers to obviously hit the shelves. The reason this is an issue for a lot of small independent retailers is that they have to invest £10,000, they have to invest £15,000 to be given the ability to fit for equipment, those heads, those shafts. And with that investment, they have to have a certain amount of drivers, hybrids, woods, irons, wedges on the shelf. And if you're a local pro, you know that driver is going to drop slash in price within the next 2 months or so, meaning that you've got £5 on the shelf and it potentially is going to be worth £2 in not that long, which causes a massive supply issue. A lot of places selling the driver, not too many people buying them, unless you are two of the biggest name brands in the market, which brings us neatly onto our second factor. Brand awareness is everything in our game. TaylorMade has held the bar, especially when it comes to tour players, tour wins, and especially social media. However, I have to say Callaway, especially with the Paradigm driver, has lifted the bar, especially with their social media presence, and also with their massive success on tour as well. Even though the supply is high with both of these brands, we can evidently see on eBay that they're still selling for a good portion of their value. Both of these drivers, 549, 529 brand new, fitted for you. But second hand, even without the wrapper, maybe a few scratches, going for 360, 370, 380. But I would hold off if you do want a Callaway or TaylorMade driver. In my personal experience, if you do want to save yourself £100, as in 2 months, 3 months time, the supply is going to go through the roof. We only have to look at the Rogue ST driver from last year or the TaylorMade Stealth going for around £200 to £220, and that nosedive in price definitely happens around November, December, ultimately bringing them somewhat down to the price of the driver that I have in my hands. So let's get on to the two brands that sadly have that 1-year cycle, and secondly, don't necessarily have the same brand awareness as TaylorMade and Callaway. Number one is Mizuno, and I don't have that with me, but whether it's the old 220 or the old STX, the 230 is going for half the price as what it would be online. But as I'm going to show you with the performance in a minute, The launch, the spin, the right head type, the right shaft is going to be the difference when it comes to finding more fairways and also getting good distance. Compare it to the old STX or the old STZ, which is now 2 years old. They're going for around 60 to 70 pounds less, meaning that you're only going to lose 70 to 80 pounds over the next 2 years. Which brings me on to my number one pick of the panic selling season and why I think you should probably buy it now rather than wait. But more importantly, let's quickly talk about performance when it comes to these drivers. You see, no matter what driver you choose from this year, you can get a low spin head, you can get a forgiving head, or offset head. But when it comes to ball speed to club head speed, it just doesn't change. That there is the difference between it going 309 and then 331 yards. Virtually the same club head speed, same ball speed, less backspin, almost 22 yards difference. Understandably, it did take me another 8 shots to produce that. And the reason I'm saying go and buy this driver now is we only have to look at the LTDX, last year's model. It's going around 160, 170 pounds. If you want particular help in your bag or potentially some advice about your swing, go to sasgolfacademy.com, message me through there and I'll try and get back to you guys as quickly as I possibly can. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next one.